All right, what is up, guys? It's another episode of the Wholesaling Syndicate podcast. I'm extremely excited for the guest we have today. We have Rich Wonders, the Novation King, with us today. Rich, thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on, brother. I'm excited, man. Let's get
Yeah,
it.
same here, man. Yeah, I know Novations are, what's hot right now. Everyone's talking about it. Not everybody knows what it is. So I'm super excited to dive into Novations, how people can start doing them. Um, and yeah, I know a bunch of things I want to learn too. So before we get into all that fun stuff, though, Rich, you kind of want can you tell us your backstory and what was Rich up to before he became the Novation King?
I was up to a whole lot and a whole little all at the same time, man. So I'm born and raised in Phoenix, right? Uh, had a great upbringing. Two loving parents and everything. We didn't have like tons of money growing up or anything, but there was always food on the table, always clothes on my back, and good parents, which is like more than anyone can ask for. I'll give you guys the short version, right? But just so you have a little idea of who I am, right? When my dad passed away when I was 12, kind of went off the deep end and got rebellious, got into, using drugs and drinking and partying and just running around and just doing whatever I wanted to do. I was just a lost soul,
Hmm.
right? I was just seeking to numb the pain because me and my dad were really close. Um, went off the deep end, got sent away to a place out in Tennessee that was like a boarding school slash like brain reprogramming center, super religious. That once I got out of there, I was there for a year, got out of there, really went off the deep end after that. It actually had like the exact opposite effect. It made me want to
Hmm.
rebel more, it made me want to go crazier. And I got into drugs really bad again, started selling drugs, got into all sorts of crazy situations that luckily I, never had to go to prison, never had to go to the hospital or anything crazy like that. But there's lots of situations where I deserved like bad things to happen to me, right?
Hmm.
Fast forward, got into recording, went to conservatory recording arts and sciences. Music was a passion of mine. I loved making beats. I loved recording people. I loved the engineering and producing aspect of it, kind of molding the sound. Things ended up happening with that, and I found myself homeless, where the record label I was working with, the guy ended up going to prison. I started working for a local recording studio, and the girl I was with at the time got sick of me being a broke loser, started cheating on me with the neighbor, kicked me out, right, of the apartment, found myself sleeping on the floor at the recording studio, working there during the day, working there during the night, catching some sleep once everybody left there, made a little pillow in the corner. Then I hightailed out of there before everybody got in for the morning. Okay. This is where I found myself for a couple months doing this, pulling this off. Finally had a buddy that let me go and sleep on his floor. And, after a couple months of that, he started looking at me like, hey, brother, these bills, they're coming every month and everybody's contributing, but you, how about getting, like a job or whatever? I was like, okay, yeah, you're right, bro. My bad. And that's how I found myself selling Kirby vacuums. Okay. Called an ad off Craigslist. Hey, I'm an ambiguous ad. It was like set up and display home appliances. I think it was like make like $800 a week plus bonuses. Called them. They're like, yeah, come on down. We're hiring. How quick can you get here? I was like, whew, mission accomplished. Got me a job. Right. Got on the bus, didn't have a car, got on the bus. They gave me a hard time. Like they weren't sure if they were going to hire me. Later found out they would hire anybody that could fog up a mirror. And that ended up being a huge blessing. And that's where I had one of my first really impactful mentors, the guy that owned the place. His name's Don Burkhart. I learned sales. I learned discipline. He had a very structured environment there. He made millions of dollars, running this operation, selling these Kirby vacuums door to door. And I did that for 9 years. And I had my own office for a couple of years, did well with that for a while, but then got burned out. And this is how I first heard about wholesaling was my buddy Jared Piper. Shout out to him. I always shout him out because him traveling and posting all of his adventures completely changed my life. And that's what inspired me to find out what the hell he was doing because my life sucked and it looked like
Hmm.
his life was awesome. Right. And so I always shout him out because he's one of my childhood friends that I used to get in trouble with when I was like 12, 13 years old. We'd be smoking cigarettes. We'd be doing the most, right? Drinking, smoking weed, all of that. And he was doing great and I wasn't. And I was in a dead end job that I hated. And I thought he was a realtor. And I reached out to him. Hey, bro, this realtor thing's working out. Like, I just saw you in South America. Now you're in Asia. Like, you're living the life. How are you doing this, listing these houses? Right. And he's like, oh, well, I'm still licensed, but I actually wholesale now. I don't do any retail stuff. I was like, wholesale. What's that? My boy Travel, I hit him up. He told me he wasn't a retail agent. He was basically flipping houses. And that was a huge blessing, because if I would have just heard about this any other way, I would never believe it was real, right? I
Mhm.
was so skeptical about everything. And it really, that's what got me selling Kirby vacuums, because I knew the guy I worked for was rich, right? And I
Mhm.
saw other people that were doing better than me. So I could believe in that. And then when I saw my boy wholesaling and I heard about it, then I believed it, because I was like, okay, he's a real person. I know him. He has no reason to lie to me. He's obviously traveling the world. If he can do it, hey, why can't I do it? I'm good at sales. You know what I mean? I'm busting my ass in this opportunity that really, kind of sucks in the overall picture. I had to travel, stay in crappy hotels. We go to like little towns everywhere and sell these things, right
Mhm.
around in a van with a bunch of guys half the time. Once I got more advanced, I had my own car and everything. I was doing it just solo dolo, but I had maxed that opportunity out, right? It was like $100,000 a year opportunity, maybe a little bit more if I worked like crazy, but I
Mhm.
was never going to get rich and travel the world that way. And I already knew I didn't want to build an office. So I dove into YouTube University and came across podcasts like this, like back in the day, and Sean Terry, Brett Daniels, Max Maxwell back in the day, uh, King Khan, just seeing people do it. And I was like, all right, let me take in all this information. And Sean Terry was the guy I really connected with. His sales style was very similar to mine. He was doing in-home appointments then, and that's what I was doing with Kirby, is going in people's houses, and all the things all the sales advice he was giving. I'm like, dude, this is all the stuff I already do. Like, this
Mhm.
guy's legit. And he happened to be in Phoenix. So I was like, why don't I hit this guy up and see if he needs like a badass salesman, right? And that's what ended up happening. Was I, hit him up. I was persistent. Excuse me, sold myself to him, told him, hey, look, I'm here to learn. I have a lot of sales experience, but I know nothing about real estate. Let me know what I have to do to get my foot in the door, and I'll be the hardest worker and the best listener that you've ever had in the company. You know what I mean? And ended up working with him for a year doing in-home appointments. Then we switched over right before COVID. This was January 2019 that I started working for him. Then
Mhm.
we switched over to a virtual model right before COVID hit, by a stroke of luck or divine intervention, depending on how you look at it. And we did virtual for a year before me and him ended up parting ways.
Mhm.
Uh, and then fast forward how I got into Novation. So after I left Sean Terry, I did my own thing for about 8, 9 months. I started running some PPC campaigns, thinking I was going to take over the wholesale world. But what ended up happening is I didn't work as hard for myself as I worked for someone else. I
Mhm.
took my foot off the gas. We went on sorry, a little smudge. We went on some vacations, took the family to Hawaii back in the day, took them
Mhm.
to, Florida. We got a bigger rental house, filled it full of furniture. Before I knew it, like, my money was dwindling, right? And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, dang. You know what I mean? This is actually harder than just locking up the deals. Like, you got to do all these other jobs that I wasn't doing. And then now I'm spending all this money too. So my boy Brandon Simmons, shout out to him, also a big G, amazing dude, go giver. If you don't know Brandon Simmons, he's a good guy to know. He worked with Sean, and he knew me when I was there. He actually linked me up with a couple local wholesalers, and I ended up working with Corey Geary, and
Mhm.
that's where I learned Novations. He had learned it at like a high level mastermind. He had like a small office out in Tempe. He was running PPC, which is my favorite lead source. That's what I was using at Sean Terry's, the hottest leads. You know what I mean? And my sales style worked really good with those inbound leads. And I ended up learning about Novations. We were doing them completely different than how we do them now. We're all the things I preach against were all the things we were doing when I
Mhm.
learned it, like listing on a flat fee, not telling the sellers what's going on. Like, there's a whole list of things that we weren't doing the right way, but we didn't know any better. We were, on a new frontier basically. And that's where I developed like the basis of my sales pitch that I teach and use now, with the full transparency, the concierge service, white glove, hands off experience, the whole 9 yards. And worked with him for, I want to say, about 9 or 10 months. And me and him ended up parting ways. He was going a different direction that I wanted to go, and he was using my calls in his mastermind. And I had people start hitting me up when they found out that I left, because they had already been listening to my calls, and they're like, hey, I heard you left. Do you want to work some leads? And then that's what kind of the birth of the young Novation King. I wasn't the Novation King then, right? But that's where that kind of new chapter in my life started, with working other people's leads and eventually training teams and
Mm-hmm.
doing Zoom calls and teaching more and more people about the opportunity. And, to fast forward now, it's been, I think, about 2 years since I've left there, 2, 3 years. And now I, run my own team. We're the biggest Novation JV team in the world. I haven't heard of anyone doing more deals than us with JV deals. And it's amazing because we get to spread the opportunity. We make people money on leads that they can't monetize. And we really stress on giving the sellers a 5-star experience, being ethical, providing real value, and just creating a win-win. Like, we don't want
Mm-hmm.
anyone to leave a transaction with us feeling harmed or feeling like they didn't come out ahead. And I think that's really important with these deals, because you're dealing with vulnerable people and you're also dealing with licensed professionals.
Right.
So you have to be moral, you have to do the right thing. And sometimes you have to make decisions where maybe financially it's not the best decision if you're just looking at it strictly from a numbers point of view, but where
Mm-hmm.
you're doing the right thing and keeping your karma good, keeping the model sustainable,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to sleep at night and having an abundant mentality of like, hey, look, not every deal is going to work. And if you do the right thing, though, you'll have a sustainable business, and you'll be on the right side of history. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
100%. I feel like you always make more money in the long term doing it that way, as opposed to just trying to, get as much as you can and, fuck everybody else over.
oh yeah. And you can
But
attract better people to work for you, because good people,
mhm,
they don't want to work for a scumbag, and they don't want
right.
to feel like they're in a business where it's a scam. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And there was times where I felt like that at different companies that I worked with, where
Yeah.
survival mode, you know what I mean? I was like, look, dude, I got kids to feed and everything, but it's not something I felt good about. It's not like I was like, man, I really want to do this forever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, dude, let me get my money and get the hell up out of here. You know what I mean? And get on to something better. So I think it is a much better model, and you'll attract people that are like you too. You know what I mean? And those are the type of people you want to work with. Like, I'm very selective on anyone I let in my circle. One, they've got to have a good heart. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
They really have to be a good person, have good intentions. They have to be coachable and teachable. They have to have the work ethic. And then they have to have big goals and big dreams. Like, I don't want to work with people that are just trying to get by. Like, I want
Right.
people that are wanting to build, to grow, to expand, because that's how we're all going to get what we want. So,
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I appreciate you sharing. Well, if you're cool with it, man, I'd love to unpack some of that because I feel like we went through a
yeah.
lot. But man, it's crazy. The reason I was laughing is because my background is very similar. Same things, kid, group homes, bunch of trouble, juvie, all that fun stuff. Um, and yeah, it changed my life around when I got into sales. And my first sales job was Kirby too. And
Shut up, dude.
yeah, I didn't last very long. I did the training, and so we sat through the training, and like same thing. I'm like, I got this dope fucking job, and the training literally changed my life. Though that was like the best sales training I've ever done. I worked a million sales jobs, and that was hands down best training I ever got. And like especially just starting out, not knowing anything. Um,
Yeah.
but it was funny because we kept going through it, and every day there's like a group of like 20 people the first day, and then like as the week went on, there's like 3 people left. And I kept thinking,
Congratulations, you made the cut, man. Everybody else got fired, man. We kept you though.
yeah, I realized it was
You
me
get
and like
quit.
all the other people that weren't like the best candidates too. And I'm like, oh, and I'm like, maybe, that maybe I should leave. And I found out they weren't going to pay me that for that first week, to the place I was at. And they're like, oh, we'll pay you. And then they're like, no, we're not going to pay you. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, all right, I'm going to dip out. But yeah,
Crazy.
training was super valuable. So no, I think that's crazy, man. So was that kind of the turning point for you? You think was finding sales, or was something else that kind of, what do you think was like the tipping point or the turning point for you?
I mean, there's been so many, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it's like
Right.
each new chapter kind of had like a pivotal transformation, right? So yeah, one major turning point was definitely when I went from sleeping on the floor of the recording studio to being active in sales, right? And that was the first time where, because before my dream was always, well, when I was selling drugs, was to be a rich drug dealer and get into legitimate business. That
Mhm.
obviously didn't work out, right? Then it was like, okay, this recording studio, I'm going to be a famous producer, make it big, live this crazy life. That didn't work out. Then it was like, okay, I found this Kirby thing. I'm going to be this big businessman. I'm going to be like my boss. I'm going to start this big office. That didn't work out, right? Found out I hated it. And then when I got into real estate, then it was like, okay, great. And then there was like several points where that didn't work out either. You know
Mm,
what I mean? But I just kept going. And I would say the biggest pivotal moment was uh finding my wife
mhm,
and going from being a single dude trying to do his own thing to having a family.
mm,
So meeting her was a huge turning point because it wasn't about me anymore. It was
mhm,
about, when we first got together, she had a 3 and a 5 year old. Things moved really fast. We fell in love, moved together right away. Before I know it, my daughter was on the way, and that's what made me leave Kirby, because the thought of um me raising kids, doing this job, being gone all the time, struggling, being this absentee father, or even worse, like failing. And there's things going on
mm,
in the Kirby business. The guy was getting in trouble for all the cold calling he was doing. And the writing was on the wall that, like, hey, look, this ain't going to last forever. And that's what made me think bigger and get involved in bigger opportunities. So that was a huge thing right there, is wanting to give my family a great life, because I had almost like given up on me having the life that I originally envisioned, like this
mm,
playboy lifestyle and all that. Like, you know what I mean? Like that never worked out when I was young. So it was like and then once I met her, I didn't even want that.
right.
What I really wanted was to have a beautiful family, to be able to travel the world with them, to give them a great life, teach them all the lessons that I learned, by bumping my head in the wall over and over again. And then the fear of not pulling that off really drove me even more so than the desire of getting it done. Like
Mm,
I already had felt like a failure. You know what I mean? So like the thought of them looking at me like a loser, that was something like I was not willing to
mm,
do. And I would literally like pull it off or like die trying. You know what I mean? Like I was willing to like lay it all on the line. And it makes me emotional even thinking about it, because those were
yeah.
like the moments that really like forged the determination. And people downplay the mindset involved, right? Like for me, it was all very difficult. Like none
Mhm,
of it came easy to me. You know what I mean? And maybe there's people that are smarter than me or like more ambitious where they just pulled it off and it was no big deal. But for me, it was extremely hard.
yeah.
And there was many times that I wanted to give up. I didn't think I was going to make it. I questioned my own talents, abilities, questioned my identity so many different times. I'm like, man, what am I even doing? You know what I mean? But I'm so grateful. And honestly, it's by God's grace that everything did end up working out. And like now, you know what I mean? Like I'm doing all the things that I envisioned. And I just feel so grateful that I really don't deserve any of this. I worked hard, but lots of people work hard and never get their dreams accomplished. I was working hard when I was doing Kirby. I was
Right.
actually working a lot harder than I'm working now. You know what I mean? But
Mhm,
God really just blessed me with just these one step at a time,
mm,
getting these ideas on how I can push the ball one step further. And I just kept listening and implementing it. And that's what's allowed me now to, be in a completely different place than I ever thought I would be. And my biggest fear now too is just getting arrogant or taking it for granted and having it all
mm,
go away. You know
right.
what I mean? Because I know it totally could. Like I'm
Mhm,
one bad night away from my whole life being destroyed. So it really keeps me on my toes. And I really try to involve as many people as I can now too, because what I found is I work much harder for other people than I'll work for myself. Like for
mm,
myself, if I'm comfortable, I'm cool not doing anything. Like
yeah.
I'm that guy. I'm totally cool. Some people live to work. I don't. You know
Mhm,
what I mean? I'm totally cool with just chilling all the time. I would totally do that. But I make sure I keep everybody around me, because I will work for the guys that work underneath me. I will work for
mm,
my family. I will work for my kids, my wife. You know what I mean? So I have to use external motivators to keep me going, because a lot of times, like, I won't do it just for myself. So
right. No, that's great, man. No, I feel like it's so true, especially for people that are listening to this podcast and they're going through it now. It's just crazy when you look back and like, because hindsight's 2020, but it's crazy. Like you know, how the things that you thought wanted to work out a certain way didn't work out that way, but end up being for your good, and like meeting the right people at the right time, and like how they were placed in your life. It's, you know, you got to think they're, you know, I mean, regardless of what you believe, you know, I believe in God too, but I mean, yeah, there's, when you look back like that, you can see as a design, like what are the odds of like that happening? You know, it's just crazy.
For sure. All your worst moments are preparing you for something great. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to look at it that way, because otherwise you're just a victim going through life with bad things happening all the time. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? For the people that don't look at it that way, then it's true. Then their whole life is just filled with misfortune and they never amount to anything. And that's where I was for a good most of my life. You know what I mean?
Me
It's just
too.
how I was just a guy that was having bad things happen to him and didn't know what to do. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
when I kind of surrendered my own thinking and looked to a higher power, that's when it's just crazy. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to get preachy on here or anything, but I'm just telling people what worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I opened myself up to a higher power and tried to eliminate all the things that were holding me back, I would literally get great ideas that would just pop into my head. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that I thought of it or I sat down and calculated it and figured it out. It was like delivered to me.
Yeah.
And I just, I wish that blessing for everybody. You know what I mean? Because I think we were all designed and built uh for a great purpose, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? To serve the greater good. And, you know, ever since I've, just kind of surrendered my will and everything like that, is just, things have just continued to get better. And, instead of bad things happening all the time, now just like random good things happen to me.
Mm.
So
100%, man. No, I love that. And yeah, I think if, you know, you found something that helped you and changed your life dramatically, you know, you'd be a dick not to share it. So I don't think that's preachy at all,
appreciate
man.
that. Yeah.
Well, I love it, man. So yeah, so you're going through, so doing the novations, you changed it completely. So let's kind of get into novations are. So for people
Yeah.
who maybe are just starting out, you know, what is a novation?
Okay. So a novation, give me one sec. Novation's kind of a blanket term, just how wholesale is. No, the word novation means to replace one agreement with another.
Hmm.
Now, the practical use of it and the way that the method that we use, I call it the rainmaker method. Okay. And a rainmaker is someone that pulls top talent from different places to bring it together on a project to work together. So it's essentially the same process as wholesaling, meaning, we're actively seeking out motivated sellers that don't want to sell their house, they need to sell their house, right? And they're not wanting to go through the traditional process that 98% of people are going to do, of calling a realtor, fixing up the house, listing on the market. So these people, they're looking for a cash offer. However, in wholesale, the best fit for a cash offer is a house that can be fully remodeled or that you can buy an extreme discount. Nowadays it's normally like you probably have to be at about 50 cents on the dollar to be able to make a decent margin and resell it to an investor who's going to put money into it, then, put it on the market, pay a realtor and make a profit. Right. So you come across these people where they're willing to take a discount, but their house isn't jacked up enough to justify a 50 cents on the dollar offer. Right. And what we do is, we have a whole process on how we evaluate and negotiate these deals. But in a nutshell, we offer them a solution where they get a net price. They understand we're going to be reselling the property to a third party. And whatever we negotiate with the buyer on top of what we promise them, that's our profit to keep. So they know exactly what they're making. And then that big hack is we use local agents to list the property on the MLS, and we can sell to retail buyers. So families that are buying the house with a loan. So normal wholesaling is only for cash buyers, right? You can't use someone that's paying with a loan to buy the property because it's an assignment of contract. The
Hmm.
lenders won't let you do an assignment and make an assignment fee. Okay, with our paperwork and our strategy, we can do that.
Hmm.
And so it opens up all these properties that have motivated sellers that aren't a fit for a wholesale deal, but also don't want to be going through the traditional process, where we can give them most of the speed and convenience of a cash offer, but they'll net significantly more money than a 50 cents on the dollar offer. And we basically just give them certainty, peace of mind, and hands-off experience. So we tell them they don't have to lift a finger or spend a penny. We deliver the result on a silver platter. So it's one of those things, right? Where it's like, well, if this was legal and if this was true, then why wouldn't you do that? Why is this not a bigger thing? And that's what I said. And that's why I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm the Novation king then. I'm going to make this popular because this is crazy. This is amazing. And I don't know why anyone in their right mind wouldn't want to do this. But
Right.
the thing is, there's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of murky water. We'll put it that way. I can't say the word right now. There's a lot of conflicting information. There's a lot of noise.
Right.
And there's the right way to do it. And then there's all the other ways to do it. Okay. You have to be transparent with them. That's number one. You can't try to do this behind their back. It's going to blow up in your face and it's going to make this illegal. If enough people do that, that's why anyone that follows me on Instagram at Novation King, like you'll see, like I come after people. If they publicly are trying to lead people down the wrong path, I call them out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've gotten back and forth with people because like, yo, I'm not afraid of any of these real estate nerds. I ain't worried about it. And at the end of the day, I'm going to make sure sellers don't get harmed and people don't blow up our industry. Because when you do it the right way, it's totally fine. It's legal, it's ethical, it's moral. But when you do it these other ways, then you get into shady territory and sometimes outright scammer territory. And that's the thing that I want to call out because I know most people in real estate too, they're not confrontational. Hey, look, I'm just going to make my money. I'm not going to worry about what other people do. The thing is, there's a ripple effect. And especially if people popularize doing it the wrong way and enough people are doing it at scale, it's going to destroy the industry for all of us. So
100%. No, it makes a lot of sense. And especially if someone's brand new, doesn't know what they're doing, might not be the right way to do it. And they're listening to someone they saw online. I mean, I feel like,
yeah, they're taking that advice. It's like giving a chimpanzee a AK-47 and setting them loose, you know, in the senior center.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bad idea.
Right.
So it's a double-edged sword, right? This is a very powerful tool, but it has to be in the right hands because you have to take care for the sellers because the sellers are almost always in a vulnerable position. And that's why they go this route. Otherwise, like if they were doing great, they just hire a realtor. They're in a vulnerable position. That's why they go this route. And we have this moral and ethical and legal obligation to do right by them. And that doesn't mean we can't make money, but we do everything we say we're going to do. And we keep our promises and we don't lie.
Right. Yeah, I know that's a big question I hear a lot. That I had myself too. Is, you know, if someone's going to go the Novation route, why wouldn't they just hire a realtor? And I know you kind of touched on it, but can you go a little deeper into that?
Yeah. So they're out there seeking a cash offer. That's how they come across our desk, right? Because they're either filling out a PPC form, pay-per-click. You know, they've responded to cold calling, they've responded to a postcard. So they automatically are filtered as people that don't want to call a realtor because otherwise they'd just be calling a realtor. They wouldn't be talking to us. And it's different things. It's normally a life situation. So with a wholesale deal, it's a life situation and a property condition situation. Now, not all these houses are beautifully remodeled. It's anywhere from the spectrum of beautifully remodeled to barely livable, right? And, you know, we do list the as-is houses as well, if it makes sense. But that's not technically a novation because the novation is if they're using a loan and you do the replacement of contract. But they're looking for certainty, peace of mind, and hands-off experience. They don't want to spend any money. They don't want to go through the process of hiring an agent. You know, maybe they had a bad experience in the past where the house was on the market for 6 months and they didn't get the result they wanted. But they're looking for someone to solve their problem. And this is just a unique solution that, you know, it's not going to be a fit for most people. Like this is not something where you take a normal seller and you steal them away from an agent and you make a profit on it. This is someone that's getting 50 cents on the dollar offers everywhere that it either can't sell it for that or isn't willing to sell it for that, but they want that experience and they're willing to take a discount. But, you know what I mean? They're still looking for a relatively quick timeline and they don't want to spend money. They don't want to fix up the house and maybe they don't have money to move. A lot of these people, they don't have money to move. They're in a tight financial spot. Maybe their house is behind on payments. I mean, divorce situations, health situations, out of state owners. I mean, there's all these same problems we see with wholesale is the same problem that these novation sellers have, but it's
Mhm.
just their house condition is just better,
Right.
almost always. So
That makes sense. Yeah, that's one of the big questions I ask if I'm having trouble getting them to give me their motivation, or if they just want a high price, I'm trying to get them come down. That's like, why wouldn't you just list with a realtor? If you want to get full retail, why not just list it? And then like I hear all the same things you just mentioned, which thanks I haven't done innovation yet, but yeah, they're same thing. They're like, I don't, some of them just don't like realtors, and like I don't want to deal with a bunch of people walking through my house, or I just don't want to, I had a bad experience with a realtor once, or hear
yeah,
all kinds of different ones. They just don't want to deal with it. They don't want to do the open
they're afraid of the
houses.
worst case scenario. And the worst
Hmm.
case scenario is a realtor that's annoying. There's people coming through the house at the drop of the hat. They got to spend a bunch of money. They're trying to avoid it. And here's the thing, like I'll be honest with people, like these deals, they're not easier than wholesale deals. They're
Hmm.
actually quite a bit more difficult, and it requires money. You can't do it if you're just starting out, you don't have any money. You're not going to be able to pull these off, because you're going to have to help them move. You're going to have to pay for minor repairs. Like there's going to be points where you spend money, and I've got a community with over 400 people in it that are all pulling off these deals front to back. But the thing is like for most, I don't push everybody towards this,
Hmm.
because a lot of people aren't ready. Like if you're, and other people, they totally could do it. They just don't want to. They're making money wholesaling. They don't
Hmm.
want to learn a whole new process. They don't want all these new moving parts. And that's why we started novationjv.com, where we're the number one Novation JV team, where if you can just get good at identifying these properties and gathering the information, you can send your seller leads to us, the opportunities that fit our criteria,
Hmm.
and know that not only are we going to treat you right, we're going to treat your seller right, and we're going to deliver the result on a silver platter. And we give people 40% of the deal just for sending us the lead, and we do all the
Wow,
work.
that's
So,
badass. Yeah. So if someone's listening to this, what criteria is it? If they want JVs or certain criteria they should look for, how
yeah.
far should they get in the call before they send it to you guys?
So our formula for the max allowable offer, I'll start there, is 90% of current condition value. So current condition value is what price can we reasonably predict that it'll sell for on the market and get an offer in 3 weeks or less, or we'll call it less than a month. But
Mm.
what price will it sell quickly for on the market with doing minimal to no work to it? We're not remodeling these things. We're not dressing them up. We might clean out the trash and stuff, but like we're doing just all the most basic stuff. So CCV, current condition value, minus 10%. So I'll use an example. If the house is worth $300,000 as it sits, other
Hmm.
similar properties are selling pretty quickly for 300,000. Minus 10%, so that'd be minus 30,000. That'd bring us down to 270, and then minus at least $30,000. So $30,000 is the magic number for our minimum profit. Whether
Hmm.
the house is $100,000 house or $1 million house, we got to make at least 30 grand for the juice to be worth the squeeze, because we got to
Hmm.
pay you, I got to pay my guys, I need to make a cut, we got to pay the realtors. So the 10% number that we take off the top, that's for realtors, closing costs, and any miscellaneous expenses, right? And it pads it so that we can, have a little margin for error. And then the 30,000 is just for profit. So in this scenario, a $300,000 CCV house, 270 minus another 30, that would mean our max allowable offer would be 240,000. Now, on the same $300,000 house, maybe it's worth 350 fixed up, right?
Hmm.
So but let's say half of it's in decent shape and half of it's old, your wholesale price is going to have to be at least under 200,000,
Right.
right? And probably closer to like
Buck
150,
50. Yeah.
160 to
Hmm.
be able to make a couple bucks on it, right? So this same seller that's getting maybe $200,000 offers from the bozo wholesalers, and then 150s, 160 offers from the guys that actually know what they're doing, they can get 240 with us, and we still make $30,000. So
Mm.
it's a win-win-win for everybody. You know what I mean? The seller, the JV partner, our team, the realtors that we work with, everybody makes money, and everybody gets exactly what they're promised. So yeah, because a lot of people, look, even if they have the money to invest in the Rainmaker training at novationking.com, maybe they don't want to change up their whole sales process, because
Hmm.
you can't just take a piece of this and plug this into what you're doing. Like it's an all or nothing deal. Like
Hmm.
you have to completely follow the blueprint, or you're better off just passing it forward. And a lot of people, they already have their sales teams going. It makes more sense just to pass it off and let us do all the difficult, complicated stuff. And they're just making 40% net profit for passing forward leads. Like kind of a no-brainer,
Yeah.
to implement.
No, that's a badass deal for sure. So they don't have to get under contract or anything. They can just say, "Hey, I have
Oh,
this guy. He's willing to like." Should they mention Novation? Should they mention like any of this stuff to them, or is there like how far should they
yes.
get in the call before they hand it off to you guys?
Good. I'm glad you brought this up because I got so wrapped up in the price part. Okay,
Mhm.
so this is the best process. You want to take them through a discovery process and an anchor process.
Mhm.
So no, it doesn't have to be under contract. It's actually much better if it isn't.
Mhm.
No, do not mention Novation. Do not mention third-party sale. Do not mention that another person is going to be talking to them. The best way to set these up is as soon as you identify that this is not a wholesale deal. And if you're doing PPC, you'll probably know right off the bat. If you look at it and the house is in decent shape, it ain't going to be a wholesale, right? The first phase, the discovery phase, you want to just gather all the important details, their
Mhm.
timeline, right? All the granular details about the condition of the property. Get as much detail as you can. What's the kitchen like? The cabinets. What's the flooring like? The roof, the HVAC, plumbing, electrical, bathrooms, paint, landscape, all the normal stuff that we need to know, right, for a wholesale deal. Gather all that. And then also, if they start talking about some of their problems or concerns or their situation, just be an empathetic listener and don't go in for the kill, but just, invite them to kind of expand on that with the intention of, hey, the more that we understand your situation, if there's anything we can do to help, it just empowers us to do that. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And having kind of a laid back approach that's low friction is very helpful because you need their cooperation at the end for this to work. This
Right.
can't be something where you go toe to toe with them and you both punch each other in the face and then now you both got black eyes at the end. You know what I mean? It is going to be a difficult thing. So
Yeah.
you go through the discovery phase and get all the info. Then you go through what's called the anchor phase, where basically you show them actual cash comps in the area. Okay. And first, you want to explain all the things that are similar between the cash comp and the subject property. And these are likely going to be more statistical things than condition things, right?
Mhm.
Where the square footage is similar, the bedroom and bathroom count similar. It's in the same neighborhood. It was sold recently. And you have to reset their expectations of, hey, look, they're seeking out a cash offer, but this is what actual cash offers are coming in at. And a cash offer is kind of all or nothing. It's not like you get more if it's a little bit better or you get less if it's worse. I mean, obviously, if the roof's caving in, that's going to be different than a house that isn't. But
Mhm.
they're looking for this solution that doesn't exist, which is like a 80% cash on the dollar offer from a cash buyer. There's not cash buyers buying it at those rates. It's like they're buying either things that they can fix up. Maybe you get lucky and find a landlord, but there's not a lot of those right now with the way interest rates are. And you know
Right.
what I mean? It's slowed down quite a bit. So you anchor them low and then you leave them waiting for a decision. Don't give them an actual offer. Give
Mhm.
them a tentative range. So by tentative range, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm just basically information gatherer. From what I'm seeing, it looks like cash offers are coming in somewhere between 150 and 190,000. Is that kind of what you had in mind for your asking price, right? And hit him with, oh no, I wouldn't take that. Da, da, da. I wouldn't go a penny under 220,000, right? And this is the same $300,000 scenario, right? You're
Right.
like, okay, Mr. Seller, hey, I appreciate where you're coming from. And, take that with a grain of salt. I'm not the one that comes up with the final numbers. I'm just looking at the basic data in the area. But hey, I've been wrong before, right? And maybe they could offer more. Leave them on the hook waiting for a decision and then send in all the info to novationjv.com with all the condition info, the seller's situation, all that. And then myself or one of my teammates will reach out to you, the wholesaler, not the seller. We'll
Mhm.
reach out to you, gather any further details that we need, then we'll send you our warm handoff script where literally you can read the script. It doesn't
Mhm.
require anything on your part. Don't try to put your own spin on it. Just read the script. The script works amazing. Doesn't need any improvement. You read off the script and it basically has you backing out of the deal and saying, hey, I have this colleague that's also on the phone. We'll be on a three-way call. The company he works with or she works with has a different business model than ours. And sometimes they can make deals like this work that aren't a fit for us. They just have a few questions for you. And then boom, now it sets us to have a clean slate and we can run them through our sales process.
I love that.
So that's all they have to do is just fill out the information, pass it to us, do the warm handoff, and we'll keep them in the loop when we hit milestones and decision points, right? But they're like the JV partner's not involved in the process. For them, it's also a hands-off white glove experience where we deliver the result on a silver platter. Because here's the thing, if they really want to learn it, they just buy the course. You know what I mean? Most of these people, they're passing them to us so they have more bandwidth to do the deals that they already know how to do that are quick money. Because here's the thing, if I could do all wholesale deals and make as much money as I make and do these novations, ouch, I would do wholesale deals all day. They're a lot easier. They're a lot quicker. You get your money faster. You don't have to spend any money. Like wholesale deals are amazing. Like I'm not the guy trashing on wholesale. It's just, if you're marketing, there's way more novation opportunities. So I'm doing the dirty work that no one else wants to do because I've already invested all this time and energy in building out the teams, the systems, the process. And I bumped my head. I mean, however much money, millions I've made on these deals, I probably lost just as much in failed opportunities. So I've learned a lot of expensive lessons along the way that, you know, instead of people trying to do these themselves and losing deals like I did for all these years, they can give it to us and they're in good hands and they're going to get a 40% cut. And our average deal size is around 40,000 right now. So
Nice.
40% of that, you know, it ain't bad.
No, that's great. Oh, that's awesome, man. It's funny. It sounds like our sales styles are very similar. So there's a lot of people out there, I won't name any names, but that you're like, don't ever say that there's like an underwriting team or anybody else, or don't you know, do that. But my whole thing is I always want to act like I'm on their side. You know, my whole thing is I'm on their team. I'm trying to help them get that solution. And so I don't want
For
to be
sure.
adversarial with them or confrontational or fighting back and forth on numbers, or, you know, you just, I don't know. It's not my sales style.
It's truthful too, especially if they're
Mhm.
passing the deal to us. Like we're making
Yeah.
the final decision on what we can offer. And you
Mhm.
don't have to say the underwriting team. I mean, you can, and I've
Yeah.
said it in the past, but you can
Mhm.
say the decision makers, the powers that be, you can leave it vague.
Yeah.
There's different strokes for different folks. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like, look, there's not only just one way that works, but I like using a way that's repeatable, scalable, and doesn't require one person's personality or one person's. I mean, look, if you've been doing the thing for 10 years, you can fly by the seat of your pants. And especially if you're dealing with low price point houses,
Right.
you'll lock them up left and right. Because
Mhm.
honestly, those are pretty easy deals,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Mhm.
You're dealing with hillbillies with a beat up house.
Yeah.
They're doing it for 50 cents on the dollar all day, twice on Sundays. You might even be able to get them lower than that. Now,
Yeah.
if you're dealing with a family person that has a $500,000 house, those same tactics don't work. It just
Mhm.
doesn't. And
Right.
those are the deals that have the most meat on the bone because there's a 10% margin on a $500,000 house is still 50,000. Okay. On a $100,000 house to make 50 grand, you got to peel their whole wig back and take half the equity to pull that off. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but the model too isn't as win-win as making a 10% margin on a $500,000 house, right?
Right.
And the big deals that we do, they're normally at higher price point houses. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like we had one, we made 104,000, but the house was an $800,000 house. So it was still
Right.
like a 20% margin.
Mhm.
But normally our margin is between 10 and 20%. And there'll be some outliers where it'll be less or more. You know what I mean? But as a general rule, that's what it is.
Nice. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. So, and are there any, I guess, so you kind of mentioned it before, you said if, you know, it's easier, but would you rather, if you had a property, would you rather do innovation on it or would you rather wholesale it, and
Oh, if
why?
I was going to make the same amount of money, I would wholesale it all day.
Mhm.
Get
Is
paid
it?
in 2, 3
Mhm.
weeks.
Yeah.
No, I'd have to deal with agents, lenders, escrow, none of that.
Mhm.
I would wholesale it all day.
Yeah, that makes sense. How about like the properties you mentioned before in the middle of nowhere? They're super inexpensive houses. Like there might not be as many buyers. Do you find it's easier to dispo doing the Novation route?
Oh, 1,000%, because it opens it up
Yeah,
to
everybody, right?
people that live there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we just did a deal in Atlanta, but not Atlanta, Georgia, Atlanta, Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, Atlanta, Texas, it's like 5,000 people that live there.
Yeah.
And I actually, the JV partner I did it with, his name's Gunnar Morgan. He's 23, and I just put a success story on my YouTube channel at Novation King. He had it listed on a flat fee broker, so he was already on the MLS. 3 weeks went by. Guess how many showings? Zero. How many
Wow.
offers? Zero. How many phone calls? also zero. And he hit me up as a last resort because it was getting like to the scary part of the contract. And, you know, I showed him, like, we called the flat fee broker. I showed him some creepy message. It's not a real person answering. And in a small town too, flat fee broker, automatically they think it's a scam. They're like,
Hmm.
the hell is this? I don't
Yeah.
even want my clients here. I got to see my client at church on Sundays and at the grocery store every day. I'm not putting them in a bad situation. We ended up finding the best, like, we ended up JVing the deal. We found a realtor. Her name's Gina. She lived in the town for like 30, 40 years, knew everybody in town. We actually listed it for more money and got an offer very quickly. I think it was within the first week. It was like a full price offer. And we took that deal he was about to lose, and we each made 12 grand on it. So we ended up making just under 25,000. And this was a house that these people had bought just like 2 years ago.
Mm.
And I had to pay some money. Like, I got the 12,000 was after I got reimbursed, but I ended up having to pay them like 6 grand in moving expenses. So that
Hmm.
kind of sucked. And that's more than I normally like to put out, but it was the only way to make it work. And they were in a really bad position too.
Right.
So I was happy to do it. You know what I mean? But yeah, the small towns, there's no competition from other wholesalers because
Mhm.
there's no cash buyers. There's
Right.
no investors in Atlanta, Texas. There's maybe one or two, and they're probably just going direct to seller because everyone knows who they are, right?
Hmm.
They don't need a wholesaler. But like for these deals, right? You got the FHA buyers, you got the USDA buyers in some places. And yeah, the people don't need to make money. And in a smaller town, the condition, they're less picky about it. They're looking more for like a livable condition than if you're in, say, a major metropolitan market where having the granite countertops and the stainless steel appliances and all that is like a must. Like, people don't want to buy a house unless it is remodeled or they can get a discount and remodel it. You know what I mean? So it's just there is a sweet spot there where you can serve the market and it's underserved. There
Mm.
aren't wholesalers. There aren't there aren't anybody that you're competing with except for other rainmakers, but there's plenty of deals to go around. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So are there what's the big I know you mentioned they were on the flat fee MLS and the realtor did it better. What's the why go with the realtor, I guess?
So many reasons. Okay,
Hmm.
one, when you don't go with the realtor, you're the realtor,
Hmm.
or some guy you hired is the realtor.
Yeah.
So you're getting late calls, you're getting weekend calls, you're coordinating showings, you're doing paperwork, you're negotiating with realtors, and guess what? You're not a realtor.
Right.
I mean, if you just want to go the legal route, you're brokering without a license.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
You are. I
Hmm.
mean, it's like putting on a doctor's coat and then going through the hospital and treating patients and saying, well, no, I'm actually the power of attorney.
Yeah.
No, you're acting like a doctor. You're
Hmm.
practicing medicine without a license. So, I mean, we'll put the legal aside.
Hmm.
Practically speaking, your life's going to suck dealing on a flat fee broker. And even if you find someone to do it for you, right? You hire, oh, don't worry, Rich, I hired a dispo guy. Okay, what happens when that guy gets a girlfriend? What
Mm.
happens when that guy wants to go on vacation? What happens when that guy leaves? Oh, well, I'll just get a bunch of them. Okay, great. You really think a bunch of people that you're going to hire to be a nationwide realtor are going to do a better job than someone that lives there and
Mm.
for a living and a lot of times has done it for 10 or 20 years? And obviously, if you get someone that really is that good, you're going to have to pay them good. Otherwise, they're going to leave.
Right.
Uh, and it just introduces all this friction where they call the flat fee broker. You can't put your own number directly on the listing. So they got
Hmm.
to call a VA or a message. Then they got to get back in touch with you. Then you got to pick up the phone call. You don't know the area. You don't have any vendors lined up. It's like the 3% that you pay the listing agent in most markets is such a steal of a deal. Because remember, we make 10 to 20% of the purchase price.
Mm.
And locking up the deal probably takes like 1/5 of the time, if not more, or if not less. It's like 5 times more time to do everything needed to sell the house and get the deal closed that the realtor does than it is to lock up the deal as a novation.
Right.
And you make 10 times more money. So you may as well spend all your time locking up deals and then getting agents to sell them. And
Hmm.
then you can have so many more deals going at once, and your business is more stable because it's parsed, all the important stuff is parsed out
Hmm.
to multiple people in multiple markets.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, it definitely seems like a no-brainer. So awesome, man. I really appreciate you coming on. I've got a bunch of great takeaways. And I know you kind of mentioned briefly before, but just one more time, what's the best way for people to connect with you if they want to learn more about the course or JV with you?
So my main social media platform is Instagram, and my ad is at Novation King.
Mhm.
My YouTube, I'm just getting started. I'm building it up. That's where I'm going to be putting more of my long form content. So on Instagram, I'm kind of known for going live with my seller calls. I had like a whole bunch of seller calls on my page. I've
Mhm.
since taken those down and kept it just to reels, just because it gets way better engagement. And I'm
Mhm.
going to slowly be putting my long form content on YouTube as I'm building it. So definitely subscribe to my YouTube, also at Novation King.
Mhm.
You'll see real seller calls. Like I call sellers every day. Like when I'm not on vacation, I'm going live almost every day on Instagram. And that's where I really got my notoriety, is because people really like the way I talked on the phone.
Mhm.
But you see, like I do it all virtual. I'm chilling in my penthouse, calling these sellers all around the country, doing it live for an audience. You know what I mean? So that's one thing that kind of set me apart was, yo, like I really do this and I really am good at what I do. Not to toot my own horn, but like I'm the real deal, right? And YouTube, novationking.com is where you can learn about the Rainmaker blueprint, the Novation blueprint. It's got everything you need. Like that's up for the moment, but honestly, that may be coming down at some point. We already have 400 members in there. And I'm really pushing more towards the JV because honestly, most people aren't going to put the time and energy to actually do these deals right. And I want to make
Mhm.
sure I'm not adding to the problem of people half-assing it. But and then novationjv.com is where you can do deals with us. But novationking.com to learn about the Rainmaker training, novationjv.com to do deals with us and have us do all the work.
Awesome, Rich. Well, man, I really appreciate you. I got a bunch of great takeaways. I'm sure everyone else did as well. Any final thoughts before I let you go?
Dude, appreciate you, brother. Thanks for inviting me on. And dude, we got to do some deals together, man. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. Last quick question I have for you. Uh, so say somebody has a wholesale deal and they didn't lock it up as innovation. Can they go back and JV with you if they're like, say it's in a small town or for some reason they're not able to dispo it?
Yes, we will flip wholesales to novations. Now, just know only send it if you're okay, because there's a chance that it
You
ain't
just
gonna
blow
go
it up.
right.
Yeah.
It's a more risky situation, but normally at that point, you got nothing to lose anyways, because people always
Right.
send the deals as a last resort. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
But yes, don't make a model of that. Like, don't start locking up all your deals and sending us all your locked up deals.
Hmm.
That ain't our thing. We'll do one like that with you, but moving forward from there, we want you to send it the normal way with just running through the two first phases and then sending us the info, because we'll have a much higher success rate that way.
Yeah.
Because it's much easier to set the expectations up front than to reset the expectations once they're already thinking a certain thing. So
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, I appreciate you again. Everybody, make sure to go follow Rich at Novation King, and we'll have to do this again soon, man.
awesome, brother. Thank you, man.